A grandmother said to me, "We have always been church people, and we are praying that God will save our little grandchild. The doctors say that she is certainly going to die, but we are praying for a miracle, that God will be kind and save our little Lucy." Of course, who would not want to find a way to pray for little Lucy? Of course, any God with compassion in his grasp would save a little child, and especially one like Lucy. But the prayer did not persuade God to act. God did not show just a simple compassion. So those grandparents who said they were once church-going people are church-going people no longer. We don't believe anymore. Another instance, a woman said to me, "We thank God every day. Our 20-year-old son should have been on that plane, but he missed the plane. God had a purpose for our son, and he made sure that he did not catch that plane." 150 other people did catch the plane, and they were dead. And on the basis of that mother's view, God clearly had no purpose for them. Let me read to you this passage. 20,000 dead bodies to be buried in Guatemala, rubble and revolting odours where once there were homes and schools, the terror and the tragedy of an earthquake. People and places worst hit had already suffered for being poor. Came the church's cardinal. He spoke to help the shocked and sobbing survivors, saying that their God had not forgotten them, but had brought upon them this grotesque event. The cardinal spoke to help explain the mystery of the unknown force behind this apparently capricious convolution of the earth's crust. And he said, "For an instant, God put his finger on our lives and on our earthly goods." Repelled by that repugnant nonsense, one of his own priests spoke from the cries of the orphan children and the helpless pain of the homeless. And this priest spoke up and said, "God is not a criminal who would kill all those people." A peculiar primitive notion persists in our insurance policies, deeply ingrained in people's thinking. When we're up against the calamities of a disaster, it is sometimes called an act of God. We've heard a grieving mother say, "God took our little one away." Surely not, we protest. The doctors could not cure her. The disease took her away. But the mother said God needed her, so he sent the disease to take her and the pain of death to test our faith. We must not fail in our faith. And so the game of God is to bring people to grief? Surely that is absurd. And so I could go on. I wrote that in my book, Between Two Lives, back in 1979. And the chapter then was called "Rational Living Requires a Rational Religion." Are we evolving any? For today, here, August 2010. I'm talking about an intelligent religion. And some people said to me, "Isn't that a contradiction? Isn't that an oxymoron? How can you put those two things together?" Some people say, "You can keep your intelligence talk. I don't care what you say. All I want is my simple faith." Yes, a simple faith can be on faulty foundations. Other people have plenty to demonstrate that they are very intelligent, but they accept the literal interpretation of the Scriptures, even when the Scriptures reward the ugliest of violence and genocide. So at some point we need to stop and say, what do we mean? What do we mean by an intelligent religion? What do we mean indeed by intelligence? So this address today will come in three parts. First, I shall point to several areas where religious belief and religious interpretation seem to defy all of our intelligence. Second, I'm going to talk about intelligence. How many people have been poorly served by the notion of intelligence? And thirdly, I then intend to point to some indicators of a more intelligent religion. So, an unintelligent religion, for a start. Any talk of God usually implies that there is a God person somewhere who is involved in our human world in a big way and who is involved in our individual lives. But then we ask, is God up there somewhere looking down on us? Is God keeping a record, as we're once told? Is God some kind of mega person who knows everything? He didn't know, apparently, that Adam and Eve had been eating the fruit in the garden. But does he know has he learned? Did this God send a son through a virgin birth in a young woman in the Middle East? An event never seen since? Did that son save us from our sinful nature by dying a crucifixion death? Is that what we're meant to believe? Is that an intelligent thing to believe? That quickly provokes the question, as I mentioned earlier, who was this Jesus of Nazareth? Can we really know who he was and what he said? The scholars of the Jesus Seminar, signified by that stole hanging from the lectern today, and each day we meet here, those scholars have been studying the Scriptures for the last 30 years, trying to bring us up to date with the investigations as to what did Jesus say and what did he certainly not say. And there, of course, we run into difficulty because the early accounts of Jesus, as many of you heard me say many times before, are not only open to wide interpretation, but they are put there decades after he lived and died. A new book is coming out, or is just out. I don't think